Hello, everyone, and welcome to Growing Together, a gardening podcast with me, John Lamb, and Don Kinsler, a lifelong gardener and the North Dakota State Extension horticulturist for Cass County. Don, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, John, for asking. You know, it's been a good week because I've been at the North Dakota Nursery, Greenhouse, and Landscape Association convention the last couple of days. And wow, what a great group of people. And of course, what a way to kind of be thinking about spring is meeting with all of these people. Gosh, and I got to say a shout out to Mark, a greenhouse owner up in Rock Lake and Rolla, North Dakota, who is down, and he listens to our podcast while he's doing his greenhouse work. So that's awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah. And the lawn care professional from Jamestown, who enjoys anytime we talk about lawn care and anything else. So thank you for listening. Oh, and I got to tell you about a wonderful email we got from the emergency room nurses at Sanford Hospital. Yeah, they said that they listen to it, enjoy listening to it as a group, and then discussing it. So, shout out to the Sanford emergency room nurses. Thank you for writing.
If there's a group of people that you want to be on your side, that you want to have fans of you, I think it would be emergency room personnel.
Yes,
I think that is those are great people, and that's really nice to hear that any kind of first responder, people who are doing who are really dealing with life and death situations so much of the time. It's nice to know that we can give them something back, right? People that we at some point will probably rely on in some way.
It is, and it's all about all of us working together to try to get these plants that we enjoy, to get them to grow a little better. And, and man, I mean, we could do podcasts on the value of gardening and what that does to a person's mental calmness, et cetera. So yeah, emergency room, gardening podcasts, I see a good connection.
And you were talking about the landscaper in Jamestown who listens.
Yeah, the yard care, lawn care.
He said, you said every time, that we talk about, it seems like we're going to be talking about the lawn pretty soon. Here we are. It's February 1st, and it seems like mid to late March.
I don't think I've ever been able to see my lawn in February. I mean, to see it, whereas I could mow it today.
Right.
If I hadn't mowed it shorter, I could have done my fall mowing right now, February 1st.
It's a crazy time, isn't it?
It is.
This has got to be a busy time, speaking of time, busy time for florists.
Exactly. And of course, the reason that why the convention is held the end of January is because that's kind of right before the busy season, and it's far enough away from the time that the florists, the greenhouses, need to start getting ready for Valentine's Day. So yes, it is right on the brink of a very, very busy season for anyone that sells plants, flowers for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I think what I saw a stat that Valentine's Day is, kind of no surprise, is the busiest single holiday for plant and flowers.
Definitely.
But
Mother's Day, I bet, is next.
I think it may have been Mother's Day, but I think also Thanksgiving. Which
really?
Is kind of an interesting one too.
That
but
is.
I think, and then you think about too the holidays, Christmas and Hanukkah.
But I bet Valentine's is head and shoulders above the rest.
Oh yeah, well I mean it's that whole notion of being of love, being around the people you love. Speaking of which, did you hear the one about the flower that went on a date with another flower?
No, I can't say I did.
It was a budding romance. Flower jokes are always just pawing your leg, aren't they?
Yes, I love it.
But yeah, I mean, Valentine's Day is, you think of two things. When you think of Valentine's Day visually, you think of the heart, the traditional rounded shape heart.
I thought you were going to say chocolate.
Well, chocolate. I would actually say probably roses before then too.
Yeah, definitely.
How do you think that this all came to be? Like, how did we come to that? This is a floral holiday.
And it's interesting. So if you look up the origins of Valentine's Day, there's a lot of myths and legends, because I suppose there isn't exact recorded. And of course, it goes back to Saint Valentine's, which apparently was declared a saint, from what I've gathered, in about the 5th century. A pope declared Saint Valentine's Day on February 14th. But apparently it wasn't really celebrated as a holiday of love, maybe until the 15th century is what I saw. But, it's interesting. Now, how come roses got to be a link with Valentine's Day, with romance to begin with. And so when a person does a little bit of checking, it's interesting. Now, the ancient Greeks had a goddess of love, Aphrodite. And as their legend says, Aphrodite was the goddess of love. Her lover was Adonis. And Adonis was mortally wounded. And when his blood and tears started falling to the ground, of course, naturally, roses sprouted up, of course. And so that kind of started the whole love and roses. Now, the Romans, of course, had their separate, distinct gods and goddesses. So in the Roman mythology, Venus was the goddess of love. Yeah. And her son, Cupid, happened to spill some nectar onto the ground. And of course, what would grow from nectar, but of course, roses.
Okay.
And so there then, from both the Greek and the Roman mythology, we have roses sprouting up from these legendary myths of love and romance. And so
also Cupid.
Exactly. And of course, then roses originated in kind of that area of Greece, Asia, near Asia. And pretty soon the Romans were growing roses too. And eventually they made their way to Europe. So by about the 17th century, the Europeans were growing roses. And of course, this whole connection with roses and love carried right on through. But it wasn't really, from what I gathered, Valentine's Day wasn't really celebrated that much the way we know it until about Victorian times, the 1800s. And you know what prompted it to be kind of more connected and celebrated? Mail. Being able to receive mail.
Okay.
Which I suppose, the Pony Express in the 1700s, but when there were actually mail boxes and mail offices in the 1800s, pretty soon you could send cards.
Okay.
The Valentine card. Because obviously in the 5th century, Hallmark cards weren't properly invented. So with the advent of being able to mail things, in fact, I have a Valentine's card that's probably, it's got to be 100, maybe 110 years old that my grandmother received from one of her brothers and kind of a neat little, almost a fold-out, 3D type Valentine's. I should have brought it along. So anyway, when people could send these things, then we started actually being able to celebrate Valentine's Day more. And so in addition to sending cards, because flowers and roses were linked to romance, long history, of course, for centuries, it was natural then that the Victorian times, they started sending flowers as well. And in a few minutes, we'll get into some of the wonderful meanings behind some of these flowers. And the flowers mean different things, of course. But so anyway, the long history of that rose being connected with romance and Valentine's Day. So it became a tradition. So do you send roses or flowers to Samantha on Valentine's Day?
I don't send, but I will bring some. I'll bring some home, yeah.
Yeah, I do the same. Yeah, I don't send.
Yeah.
I bring.
Yep.
Sometimes I visit florist for a ready-made bouquet. Sometimes I'll visit the florist and do the cash and carry thing. Now, I think I maybe mentioned maybe a year ago, and by the way, we'll have to look at our anniversary. Have we been doing this podcast about a year?
I think we're up in a year now.
Because I was thinking approximately a year ago, I might have been mentioning that my wife, Mary, when we met, worked at Frederick's Flowers in Fargo, which was a long-established florist in Fargo.
Yeah.
They're no longer there. But anyway, how we met was that someone from Frederick's Flowers was marrying someone from the NDSU horticulture department where I worked at the time. So we met at a wedding.
Okay.
And so anyway, I do believe I've given Mary roses ever since. Now, even though she worked at a flower shop and where they were going through thousands and thousands of roses, still, it wouldn't be the same unless I gave Mary roses also.
Right.
I think we discussed a year ago, I think you might have asked me what color do you do? And so when we get into some of the meanings of the various colors, because it's fascinating, each of the colors of flowers and roses do have a meaning. And so then I'll kind of mention why I give Mary the type of roses that I do.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, like you can give. I try to find some different things. Especially, I like to find tulips to give Sam, because it's also kind of more of a sense of spring. Especially if it's been a hard, long winter, it's nice to have this kind of sense of spring. But really, it is. Roses are almost kind of the flower for Valentine's Day, and to express favor, express love, and.
Yeah, they are. And of course, we mentioned that this became really popular in Victorian times, and of course, ever since. And so I mentioned that the different flowers have different meanings, and I learned a brand new word. So this is a good day. You don't count the day lost, you don't learn something new. Okay, so this is a good day. I learned a new word today because I knew different flowers meant different things. Okay, so, and I couldn't remember all these subtle meanings of the different colors. So I was looking it up. So here's the new word that I learned. Floriography.
Oh.
Have you ever heard that one? Floriography. No, I had never heard of it before. But floriography is the Victorian secret language of flowers.
Oh, do tell. Let's share.
Yeah, let's share. Yes. Okay, so to understand Victorian times, you couldn't just say anything that came to your mind. And so, for example, if you were visiting someone and you had to go to the bathroom, you didn't ask, "Where's your outhouse?" That would be considered very rude and coarse. So instead, you would ask, "Where might I find the hollyhocks?" Because hollyhock was a tall growing flower that was customarily planted around the outhouse.
Oh,
and
sure.
To kind of conceal it. Yeah. And so anyway, people knew, could I see the hollyhocks?
Okay.
They would know that you had to go to the bathroom. So anyway, in the Victorian times, it was very prim and proper. And so you had to say things with kind of finesse.
Yeah.
And so there was a whole language developed around flowers. And it had certain meanings, and so floriography is what that was. So it's very fascinating. So, for example, sending someone a single flower, around Valentine's Day or really any time, sending someone a single flower meant certain things. A single flower meant that it was simplicity. It meant you might have a little interest in somebody, might be interested in carrying on a little deeper friendship. A single flower meant you were kind of focusing and being a little straightforward, little subtlety.
Was this a single any kind of flower or a single rose?
Single any kind of flower.
All right.
But of course, a single rose then might mean that you were kind of hinting at kind of liking
maybe more
relationship.
Of a romantic.
Yeah, and when we get to what some of these flower colors mean, okay, so you send someone a red rose would have indicated you're kind of interested in seeing if they were interested in you. If they responded by sending you back a yellow carnation, it meant, ouch, they're not interested in you. Okay, so see, these subtleties, they didn't have to say it. They said it with flowers. And isn't that a florist saying to say it with flowers?
Flowers, I think it is.
Yes, maybe this is where it came from.
Pre-emoji, pre-text, this is the language that was used.
Yeah, exactly. And so now if you send someone a bouquet of flowers, it meant that you were hoping things would get a little more complex, and so then the type of flower that you send, either singly or in a bouquet, you see, if you created a bouquet and gave that to someone, it could kind of bring kind of an assortment of feelings together. Okay, so roses, of course, naturally, love, passion, your heart was with someone. Okay, so naturally the rose. Okay, a lily meant kind of purity or devotion. A daisy kind of meant a new beginning, a fresh new beginning, so maybe you send someone maybe some daisies, a bouquet with some daisies in would kind of give them the idea,
nice.
Maybe let's start something. A tulip, like you mentioned, meant elegance, perfect love, a spring, feeling of something springing forth. A sunflower meant adoration, loyalty. An orchid. To send somebody an orchid, because these would have been kind of rare in Victorian times, it meant exotic beauty. And so that would have probably been very rare. Carnation meant a fascination, except if it was a yellow carnation. You see, there was, if you're thinking, how do people remember all this? There was actually a book written at the time on the language of flowers. Okay, so, these things were well known because it was even written up. Now, an iris, faith, hope, wisdom. Peony, I love peonies, prosperity and good fortune. So I suppose if you send somebody a bouquet of peonies, you were kind of maybe admiring their prosperity or wishing them well on their prosperity. Daffodils, rebirth, new beginnings. Daffodils in spring.
That's a great spring flower for us, isn't it? Yeah.
Lilac. If you sent somebody a lilac bouquet, it meant first love or youthful innocence. Okay. That's fascinating.
I think, again, with the youthful, it seems kind of like a spring thing. That's what I associate lilacs with.
Aroma. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with springtime. Marigolds, joy, warmth, creativity on marigolds. Poppy, that restful, sleep, a constant. And of course, poppy, right away I thought, poppy, opium, does that mean sleeping? It's kind of like that. Violet, modesty, humility. I wonder if that's kind of where the shrinking violet, the term, you're shrinking violet. It meant modesty, humility. And so maybe that saying kind of came from that. Or Gerbera. Mary loves Gerbera daisies. Oh, okay. And Gerbera's cheerfulness. Now, zinnia, I was kind of interested in this one. Zinnia meant that you were thinking about an absent friend. So if you sent somebody zinnias, you were thinking about them because they'd been away from you for a while. And gladiolus, strength of character. I can see that because a gladiolus is kind of a strong spike.
Big, strong stem.
So isn't that something, so people would carefully choose and select the flowers so that you were sending the right message, because if you willy-nilly sent the wrong flowers and the wrong colors, you could probably be offending somebody. Okay, now on the colors. Colors, of course, red meant the passion, love, affection. Pink means joy. It was historically maybe a color of femininity, and it meant playfulness. So if you sent somebody pink roses, the subtleties could be, it could either mean that you were friends, maybe wanted to just be friends, or it could mean maybe that you were kind of the early stages of wanting to get interested in someone. So obviously you wouldn't just send somebody red roses, that you just met, send them a big bouquet of red roses. That would have been awfully forward. Yeah. Awfully forward for Victorian times. And yellow, to cheer up a friend. Unless, of course, you were romantically interested in somebody, and of course, then they sent back the yellow carnation. So I suppose that meant they just want to be friends, maybe with you, and weren't romantically interested. And of course, white has always meant kind of innocence on that. And so it's interesting. Okay, you mentioned flowers sent, for Valentine's Day. So red, of course, but red roses, red tulips. Okay. So flowers that mean love, appropriate for Valentine's Day. Red carnations. Maybe if a person's budget a little tight and you can't spring for roses, red carnations would be equally as appropriate. So now friendship. If you just kind of want friendship, yellow roses. Okay. Chrysanthemums is a flower. Oh, okay. So anyway, it maybe would be considered inappropriate to send your wife or loved ones carnations. Right. Because that would indicate more friendship. Now, gratitude. You could send somebody, if you want to thank them, pink roses, indicate gratitude, iris, and hydrangeas. So a potted hydrangea would be an appropriate kind of a thank you gift. Now, sympathy.
I would be happy receiving a hydrangea. Yes. Wouldn't that be great? That would be a wonderful gift.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? Because they're long lasting. Some of the varieties you can even kind of plant outside and treat. Now, sympathy flowers. Of course, lilies. Yep. White lily, white roses.
Is that the peace lily and the peace lily? Okay, 'cause a lot of times when people lose somebody, for funerals,
it's kind of nicknamed the funeral plant. Yeah, with the nice green leaves, but also then when for funerals they're usually in bloom too with a nice lily-shaped flower. Orchids can be symbolic of sympathy, and poppies. So I wonder if that's where, the Flanders fields of red poppies, World War I suppose that could, symbolize also the sympathy with that. And for celebrations, peonies.
Okay.
Peonies and daffodils so, it's interesting. I'm kind of thinking and chuckling a little bit on how it must have been in Victorian times in the 1800s, late 1800s, of how people would be very aware of these things. For example, if you sent someone white lilies, I mean, gosh, I like white lilies, but that would be a symbol of death.
Right. That may be a different – people may read into that.
And so you didn't want to be crass and send someone the wrong flowers and that they'd get the wrong meaning. And so I chuckle at the subtleties of these. Now, of course, when we go to look at all the display of flowers, I don't think we go quite with that finesse of what you're doing. But it is kind of interesting how these came to mean these different things.
Did you run these past Mary? Was that in her vocabulary as far as like the meaning of different flowers and colors?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, she and I have never discussed that. I'll have to ask Mary if they ever considered that as they were doing up the various colors of roses.
And actually, any florists out there or people who do floral arrangements, if they've heard, because these are probably more historic, we're talking Victorian era. If people have current meanings or if people know of different things or different flowers that are sent now, because like you said, it's probably hard to find a potted hydrangea to send, or to give to somebody right now in our area.
Exactly.
So if people know this, they should send you an email.
Yeah, that'd be super. Yeah, and
it would be fun to get that kind of feedback and to hear from people.
People, floral designers, or anyone that maybe has connection and maybe has some of these relationships with the color. If they're currently seeing, are people trending with one type of flower or another based on what the message that it might send. Now, it's interesting though. Okay, we talked about the historic times, the Victorian times, and how they knew all these subtleties of the color. But as I'm thinking, when I look at the florist cooler full of all these different rose colors, and I am looking at the yellow bunch, and I'm looking at the pink bunch and the red bunch, I'm kind of thinking, I wonder, because I like yellow, they're cheery and all that, but then I'm kind of thinking, gosh, if I got Mary the bunch of yellow roses, am I still sending a less than romantic image to her? Now, it's interesting. I think a year ago, I might have said I got Mary pink roses because she likes pink.
I was going to say the thing you should also pay attention to what somebody's preference and what somebody's, what they like, their colors and their things. Because some people may not like, I think we were talking lilies. I know Sam does not like the smell of lilies.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So
stargazer lilies with their heavy, pungent perfume might not be everyone's cup of tea.
But pay attention to what
someone might like. So even though the red rose is the kind of has the trademark of being the optimum Valentine's flower, for Mary, she actually prefers the pink roses. And so, that's neat to keep in mind as well.
Well, and I think now too, with through generations of breeding, now you can get plants, I think, or flowers, tulips, I think, especially, where you can get different colors or shadings and variations in there too, where it won't just be, red or yellow. Now, especially tulips, you'll get great oranges and, different colors.
Exactly.
Like that.
I suppose we could really confuse somebody and send them an assorted bunch of roses.
Right. What are you saying there? I think then you're saying you're my everything.
Yeah. Good point. I love it.
We were talking about carnations, and I can't get this out of my head now. Do you remember the song? I'm not sure. I think I associate it with Marty Robbins, but a white sport coat and a pink carnation. What do you think a pink carnation meant? Was that just like somebody who was dressed up and letting people know that he was available?
Let's see. I'm trying to play that song back in my head. It was a white sport coat,
and a sport coat and a pink carnation. I'm all dressed up. Something like that.
Awesome. Now, I wonder why pink carnation, not a red carnation.
I don't know. We'll have to look up that.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, the pink carnation, what comes to mind is, if everybody in the country drove a red car, we'd be a red carnation. And, for a long time that was a joke. And so I wonder, maybe that's why they didn't say a red carnation on that song, a pink carnation. Yeah, so that's awesome.
Let's take a little break, and then we'll look up the meaning of what the song was, and maybe what the meaning of a pink carnation was. And we'll talk a little bit more about flowers and also what to do with the flowers that you get for Valentine's Day.
When you can't make it to City Hall or school board meetings, local journalists from Inforum.com will be there to report the facts and get your questions answered. Local news works for you. Stay up to date at Inforum.com.
All right, we're back, and we're talking about flowers with Valentine's Day coming up. And before the break, we were talking about and it is a Marty Robbins song, I looked it up, White Sport Coat and Pink Carnation. And we were talking about that. For those who don't remember or
curious why it was a pink carnation and not a red carnation.
Well,
but as I thought about it, maybe makes sense.
The song, as he wrote it, was, as it was written, rather, I'm not sure if he wrote it, but it was kind of about a guy who's dressed up to go to a dance, and he's got his own corsage, a pink carnation, and the girl he's invited goes with someone else, so leaves him kind of feeling a little down in the dumps. So we looked up the meaning, because we were talking about the meaning of
right.
different
and of
colors.
Course, to me, as we discussed the different colors and the different meanings, a pink carnation would maybe be a little more hopeful, prom, kind of more hopeful. You're maybe going to meet somebody, where a red carnation maybe kind of was a little more in your face like.
It's a little bold.
Yeah, bold. Yeah. That's the term.
Yeah, so I looked it up, and pink carnations means gratitude. Most people associate pink carnations with Mother's Day. In fact, in America, carnations are the official Mother's Day flower, which I did not know. I thought that would have been roses.
Yeah, it's a good day. I learned a second thing.
Yeah. And then, but they're also a great way to say thank you and to show your appreciation to a teacher, nurse, coworker, or a friend. Here we go again with nurses. This is great.
We should send them pink carnations.
We should send them pink carnations. We appreciate them. So, for all the flowers that will be going around, that will be sent and that will be received, you want to keep them, you want to make them last. And luckily, this is at the rate we're going right now. It's only February 1st. 2 weeks is Valentine's Day. The weather may change, but this is okay weather. We talk about, make sure that you have your flowers wrapped up when you're leaving a store.
Yeah, because when it's 30 below, fresh flowers can easily get nipped, or if a person buys a plant of some sort to give. Absolutely. So a person should still, even if we continue to be moderate in the 40s or 30s, a person should always still wrap those flowers so that they don't get nipped on the way out to the parking lot.
And so once you're able to give those flowers and you receive them, you put them in a vase, but what should we do? What's the best way to care for flowers?
One of the most encouraging things I've seen over the last decade or so is the little packs of floral preservative that come not only in the bouquets, the designs that you buy that are ready-made, all designed, and they'll usually give you a packet of the floral preservative so that when you add water, you can add that floral preservative to it, but also the cash and carry bunches that florists sell. Normally have a rubber band down around and they're in some cellophane, but they also have a pack or two of that floral preservative. And what that floral preservative does to the water when it's added, it helps to keep it clear from bacteria and fungi so that those kind of rotting type organisms don't cloud the water and don't plug up the stems. So they're going to keep it fresher so that the flowers will keep absorbing water better. And also, they usually provide a little bit of nutrient, maybe a little bit of sap-like material that the flowers can take on up. So when a person gets flowers home, of course, if they're already arranged in a vase, the florists have already done the appropriate things, and then they give you the preservative. So when you need to add water, you add that preservative, and the directions tell how to do it, but you add that if you have to add more water. Okay, so if it's the cash and carry that you're going to take home and put in a vase yourself, the first thing to do is, of course, prepare the water with that floral preservative. Okay, so that's all ready. And The next most important thing is to recut the bases of the stems, maybe at least an inch. I like to take an inch off because the air has sealed up those stems. They've maybe sealed off a little, and so giving them a fresh cut will allow the water and the solution to be taken up better.
Kind of like a Christmas tree.
Exactly. Same principle. Now, the florists for roses, they will actually cut that stem underwater. So if you really want to do well by your roses, have a bowl of water and then make that cut underwater and then immediately get them into your vase full of water. And the reason for that is if you just cut the end of a rose, not underwater, but just cut the end of a rose, it can easily get an air bubble in that stem. And that, that air bubble will prevent water from being taken up by the rose. So there is some good science to cutting those roses underwater, which is routine at most florists.
When we're talking about water, it's probably more than just turning on your tap. You probably want it at a certain range. Yeah, you don't want it too hot, too cold.
So when you stick your hand under the faucet, you don't want it to be cold and you don't want it to feel so warm that you're going to have to pull your hand away. So just kind of that nice lukewarm, warm temperature where your hand feels comfortable, and then that would be the type of water to use.
And you should cut your flower stems at a bias, right? At an angle?
Yep, cut it at a good angle. And then, because then any that touch the bottom of the vase, it won't be kind of sealing itself off if you make a flat cut. So cutting at an angle is very important. And another little point too, when you're doing the cash and carry bouquets from the florist, when you take them home, give a fresh cut, make the water solution for the vase, but just a couple of little design principles. It's kind of fun that instead of taking that bouquet, that grouping of flowers and just sticking in the vase, there's a couple little things you can do that kind of make it a little more like a florist arrangement and just to make it look a little perkier. And one of those things is cut some of the flowers at different lengths, cut the stems at different lengths so that some of the flowers for the background will be a little taller, and then the front ones shorter and some in-between ones. And you can even give it a little bit of a shape. Maybe do that flower arrangement maybe in a triangle shape or a lopsided triangle. Or in floral design, it was called the Hogarth curve, where you would kind of curve that flower arrangement a little bit. And so you can kind of do some things that kind of make it look a little more attractive than just simply plopping them in a vase and calling it good.
And so with that too, you should, when you're making your cuts, you should figure out which vase you want to use because not all vases are the same size.
Exactly.
And I love that idea too, to cut to different size lengths of stem. Should you also, you should be trimming off some leaves that would be underwater.
Good point, John. Yes, because leaves that end up underwater would soon start to kind of rot and smell and spoil and affect the water. So yeah, anything that would be underwater would be very important to remove those leaves. The other thing, if you really kind of want to experiment with some design, florists sell the foam, that green foam that when you buy a floral arrangement, oftentimes they'll have this green water-filled foam thing that holds the flowers kind of into that design.
Yep. What's that called?
That's called Oasis.
Oasis, okay.
Yeah, generically it's called floral foam, wettable floral foam, but hands down the most common brand is called Oasis. And it's in blocks, dry blocks, and you can cut it kind of into little shapes or to fit your little bowl that you might do this design in, and then soak it up good in water, put it in your bowl, and then when you do some of these designs, it will hold those stems exactly where you want. So when you're looking at the florist window in their designs, and they have kind of a neat shape to them, they've got floral foam Oasis in them. So now when I buy Mary flowers, of course, I'm not the designer that she is and was, but I take the bouquet home and I want to make it a little special. And so I cut the stems at different lengths and kind of try to do a design like that for her. And so I challenge any of you gentlemen out there too to take flowers home. Even the effort will be appreciated.
How often should we be replacing water? Changing water.
Now, if it becomes cloudy and kind of a greenish yellow tint, yes, then dump out the whole material. If it stays somewhat fresh, which of course the little packet of material will help. If it stays, it looks like it's staying clear, you don't need to totally change it, but just add to it if the water level is starting to go down. But you don't always need to totally change it. But if it starts to get discolored, then absolutely change that water.
If you do need to change the water, can you make a home preservative, or is there something that you could make after you've used up your packet of preservative? No. Okay.
When I say no, because
don't monkey with
it. Do you add 7-Up to the water? Similar to the Christmas trees. Do we add a little 7-Up, a little vinegar, a little bleach? How much of this? How much of that? A couple aspirin tablets, and some of those things can probably block the tissue, and so those floral preservatives were specially designed for that.
Okay.
And so rather the commercial florists, they don't just keep a couple cans of 7-Up on hand to dump a little in. There's good science as to why the florists use those preservatives routinely.
Oh, that's great. Well, all this talk about flowers and, like we're saying, here we are, February 1st, we're seeing the lawn outside, but there's another reason to get excited about this spring and this our gardening season. You recently announced the date and the lineup for Garden Palooza.
Yard and Garden Palooza 2024. Now,
tell people what that is.
Yeah, that is an all-day garden event held by NDSU Cass County Extension, and Yard and Garden Palooza. This is the third year that we've had it. It is the date to put on your calendars is Saturday, April 27th.
Okay.
An all-day garden event, and our keynote speaker is Mary Holm.
Close personal friend of the show.
Of this show, yes, absolutely.
We've had her on twice.
And
she's a delight.
She is the host and star of the Prairie Public Broadcasting Prairie Yard and Garden.
And for people who've seen her on the show, she's that, but she's even so much more engaging and lively and fun in person.
Oh, yeah.
She will be a delight.
Oh, yeah. We're so excited to have her as our keynote.
A good get.
She's going to kick off the day and then also end the day. So we'll get to listen to her for 2. And then in between the keynote and cap note speaker, Mary Holm, we'll have breakout sessions. And those breakout sessions will be everything from vegetable gardening, raised gardening, lawn care, you name it, houseplants. There'll be a little something for everyone.
So this is kind of a crash course to get ready for the growing season.
It is. And and we'll announce probably at the next podcast or 2, we'll announce when registration actually opens. But we'll get that out on the media and the social medias as to when the registration actually opens. A person does need to register in advance. The cost for the day is $45, but its lunch is included. And so registration will be in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned. The registration is capped at about 200.
And it does sell out.
It does. And our Cass County Master Gardeners do a lot of the work of this, and of course I'm always there. I'm the one that organizes it, but our Master Gardeners are the ones that do the heavy lifting, the work of, and so you'll get to mix and mingle with our Cass County Master Gardeners and all the breakout session speakers and Mary Holm. So stay tuned for the registration on that.
Sam went the first year and she loved it. Couldn't make it last year, and I think she's looking forward to going this year.
So Yard and Garden Palooza, Saturday, April 27th. It's held at Shanley High School. And the reason we hold it at a school is on a Saturday, of course, the school is closed, and schools are made to order because there's an auditorium for the keynote, there's a cafeteria to serve lunch, and there's all these classrooms for breakout sessions. Yep. So schools and front door parking.
That's great.
And so, yeah, we're excited about Yard and Garden Palooza 2024. So mark the calendar, April 27th, and stay tuned.
That'll be great. Well, Don, if people have any questions both about a Yard and Garden Palooza or Valentine's Day, or if people want to send you pictures of their floral arrangements or anything along that line, or if other people have different meanings for flowers that they know of, especially, we were talking Victorian era, and now we're no longer in the Victorian era. If you've got more of a modern parlance,
people might have a tradition of, I always send someone this color or this plant because it's got a special connection for us. I'd like to hear it. That'd be awesome.
And so what's the best way to reach you?
Is to email me, donald.kinsler, KINZLER at ndsu.edu.
Don, it's been great. Thanks again.
And thanks everyone for listening. It's always great to hear from everyone. Have a good week.